So, Daniel, what's this?
That's a green facade, a garden, a hanging garden, you can say.
Of course it's a green facade. So, tell me, this is a Schüco showroom and we see a piece of green facade. Why is that? What's behind?
So what we see here is the facade greenery. It's just at the outside. On the backside, there's the unitized facade. It's a standard unitized facade. And in principle, that's a module that you can use similar to the stone in front of opaque facade elements. In principle, the facade is closed at the backside, so there is already a closed panel, and this is an add-on.
How does it work? So I see there's a foil, I see some kind of fabric behind, there's some humidity inside, I feel some tubes, I feel some roots, and then this whole thing drains down, and I see, oh, it's wet here.
Yes.
I see a drainage somewhere at the bottom. So how does it work?
So in principle, it's really like a hanging garden. You know that from your garden, plants, of course, need water and they need soil, to grow in. So this is a fleece material, and you have here some pockets. You see here it's a bit thicker.
Yeah.
And then there you have then you have some soil in there, also with fertilizers and so on, where the plant is planted into.
Okay, so this is the fleece, then there's an opening, there's some soil inside, and as I said, there's some kind of drainage system
Right.
in there.
Yes, there's drainage system in there because I said you need water, and the water is sprayed into the system, all over the system. So you have a drainage network here in there. Then the water is dripping down inside, and then it drips here in that sill, and then from there it goes down or wherever.
It's absorbed.
Yes.
We may see inside in a minute.
Yes.
So then this, water is brought into, the plants are positioned so that it works. We rearrange it. And then they stay in here, and then water finds its way, and then it may get into a loop. Do we have to do something with maintenance?
Yes,
Can you just
of
say
course.
like this?
It's like that. Of course, again, it's like in a garden. Also in a garden, you need maintenance for your plants. The good thing here is you don't have plants that you don't want, so everything stays as it is in principle. But sometimes the plants, somehow dies, or something happens with the plants. They are not healthy anymore. For that, you need to maintain a facade like that 2 times a year. So then a gardener comes there. He needs to get really to the plants, and some he has to exchange, but most of them will stay in place. So that's how it works. It's also, you see that some are really big already, so at some point it might also be necessary to cut the plants.
Cut this one so that the ones below can grow.
Yes,
Okay,
right.
that's clear. This is now in a showroom.
Yes.
So I assume this outside with natural sunlight will grow.
Yes.
How does it work here in the showroom, because it's inside?
Yeah, what you see here is important, of course, is the plant needs soil, it needs fertilizers, it needs water and sunlight. So here you don't have sunlight, but what you see here is there you have some light arrangement. And this finally is also necessary, especially for the plants at the top. Otherwise they were in the shadow and then it wouldn't work.
So up there is the lights that keeps the plants growing.
Yes.
Inside.
Inside.
Inside. Outside, it's exposed to sun.
But sometimes you also need that outside, because when you have a kind of canopy like you have here, then also the top plants might be too much in the shadow, and then it also doesn't work outside. So then you also need additional light.
Maintenance twice a year, which means it needs to be accessible in a simple way.
Yes, that's right.
That's something which is also to be taken into account. So
Yes, you have
heights
to
of
plan
3
that.
meters with a ladder, that's fine, but more, then you need a scaffolding.
Yes.
Things get complicated.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you also have to clean your facade from the outside, and in principle, you can take the same arrangement that you need for cleaning. Yeah, that's
Why
right.
would we do this? Why green in facades?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, it looks nice, but on the other hand, there are also some additional advantages, of course. We always say about what can we do for our cities, to clean the air, for example. So you can use the plants for that. They help cleaning the air. They also help to, or they also bind CO2 from the atmosphere. And then it's also an acoustic buffer.
Okay. How does that acoustic thing work?
The acoustic thing works like that. So here, for example, you have a hard surface. When you have a hard surface and you have noise from the streets, the acoustic is reflected, or the noise is reflected back to the street level. Here, that's an absorptive surface. So on the one hand, you have a kind of diverse surface with all these plants here, and on the other hand, you also have here these this
Felt, sort of.
yeah, this sort of felt, and this is sound absorptive. So this means some of the noise is absorbed and not so much is reflected back to the city. So it helps to make your cities quieter.
CO2, humidity, acoustics.
Yes,
These are the arguments.
yes, right.
This is a demonstration room. Can we actually go behind the scenes?
That's what we do.
Yes,
You're right.
we can do.
I will follow you. So here now, behind the scenes,
So what you see here now is, we talked at the outset about the water supply and the drainage. This is what you see here. Here's the water
this is the
supply.
plumbing actually.
This is the plumbing, yes. And here's the drainage. What you see is it's a mock-up, of course, so it's not air, wind and water tight. In the real building, it would look differently. Then you see here that's the unitized facade, so that one unit on that side, one unit on that side. Yeah, you see it's an opaque panel. And what is maybe also interesting is there you have some stiffeners in the unit, and this is really because the greenery, of course, is heavyweight, also with the soil and the water in
So
there.
the dead load of itself is higher than the usual glazing, for instance.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then we need also the irrigation system. That's what I understand is here.
This you see here. Finally, you don't see much because everything is in here. What you can see here in the box, there is somehow also some plumbing.
That's a
and
water
so on.
tank in principle.
That's a water tank, and here you also see some bottles with fertilizers and so on that you need also. For
That's the
greenery
nutritions
to grow.
here for the plants.
Yes, right.
And that's all.
Finally, that's all. Maybe interesting is because we also had the question what happens during winter time, because during winter time it could also be that you have some icy temperatures and so on, frost at the outside.
And water becomes a problem.
Then water is a problem. So this is a special system, and during winter time you can you can make the plumbing empty finally, you know. So there is no water in there anymore, so you don't have problems. with
Drain
frost.
the entire plumbing, and then water is
Yes.
not a problem anymore. Then it can freeze. You may have to replace some plants in spring and then start the system again.
That's how it works.
Okay, agreed.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.